Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Covering both sides of the big issues with the analysis you trust on News Radio 1040 WHO.
All across the great state of Iowa, it is the Simon Conway Show, 5:09. There appears to be some kind of effort in our country, right, to change pedophile into something else. I'm looking for the term because it's just so awful. Minor attracted people. MAPS. And now there's a Texas teacher who was on administrative leave until the school board voted to fire her. She told a class in Franklin High School, stop calling them that when they were labeling them pedophiles. We're not going to call them that, the teacher said. We're going to call them MAPS. Minor attracted persons. So don't judge people just because they want to have sex with a 5-year-old. Unquote. Man, we're having a rough day today, aren't we? Well, Jenna Quinn is on our Newsmaker line. And Jenna, there does appear to be some effort here underway. That we change the way we refer to pedophiles. There's a prison sex therapist that wants us to use that term. There was a professor who said that that's what we should do. That professor is now resigned. So what is going on?
Yes, this is so disturbing on so many levels. And like you, this is not the first time that I have heard this. I'm in the field of child sexual abuse prevention, and I have been for 18 years.
Yep.
And I am also a survivor. And I can tell you that this term has been around, okay, for the last few years or maybe even longer. And there are organizations out there that are pro-pedophilia that are doing what they can to try to normalize this. For the rest of society. And I've seen it in these different groups, but this is the first time, which I think is really alarming. This is the first time I've seen it seep into, our education system to where our teachers, who are supposed to be mandatory reporters of such things, are now using this term.
Right. Why do they want to make this more acceptable?
Yeah, so, language is a very powerful thing. And so it's just the next step, right, in trying to normalize this or see this as some type of, sexual orientation. But let's not forget the fact that pedophiles are sexually attracted to children.
Right.
So we're not just talking about minor attracted, like, oh, I just think like some, teenage girl is pretty. No, I'm not falling for that. Okay, I know exactly what you're trying to say. If you want to change it to minor sexually attracted, then I might believe you. But this is a very deceptive term and very, very dangerous.
Right. So I repeat, why are these people, a school teacher, a prison sex therapist, a professor, why are they trying to make this more acceptable to the vast majority of us who would find this completely unacceptable?
That's exactly right. Because it's evil and they're not victim-centric, okay? I heard, it's offensive to pedophiles. Oh, really? Offensive to pedophiles? How do you think that 5-year-old little girl that's being raped feels? Okay, how offended do you think she is? So, it's just, we're really not, our culture has a long way to go, and you have, advocates like myself, and you have nonprofits. We have a nonprofit as well called Reveal to Heal, and we have so many great groups, the NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There are hundreds and hundreds of child and youth serving groups that are trying to fight child sexual abuse and trafficking and exploitation and commercial sexual abuse material in all of its forms, right? We're working really hard to fight this. And then you have people on the other side of the bridge that feels that they are fighting against us with their language and trying to normalize this.
We started today's show with a horrible story about a 15-year-old, she's 17 now, who was sentenced over something that happened to her. She was sex trafficked, and she was repeatedly raped by this one individual who, after the very last time he raped her, there was a knife on the side, and he fell asleep, and she stabbed him to death. And while most of us are going, great, and I really hope that hurt him, the county prosecutors went after her for first-degree murder. She's a kid. This is where we started today, and she ultimately pled guilty, because if you're 15 and they're saying, hey, the rest of your life in prison, I guess that can be pretty scary. So she pled guilty to a far lesser offense, and she's got 5 years heavily supervised. But here's the real kicker. She has to pay her rapist's family $150,000 in restitution. That's where we started today's show, and now we're talking about a group of people in our country that somehow want to make pedophilia more acceptable and want to make sure we don't offend them. Are we? How far through the looking glass are we, Jenna?
Yeah, this should make everyone sick to their stomachs, and if you haven't woken up yet, you need to wake up now. Because I'm afraid that this is not the last time we're going to be hearing about this term. Like I said, I've heard it before, and I feel like we're going to be hearing it again. So, and this is not the first story, again, that I have heard of, the victim in self-defense and in rage, ending the life of their offender. And so this is actually not really an uncommon thing. So we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to look at this in our society? We need to have a lot more compassion for survivors. We need to do a lot more for our prevention movement, okay? Because if you look at this, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused before the age of 18. That's just before 18. That doesn't include the things that happen after that.
Sure.
So
I described you. I'm sorry, Jenna.
Common.
I described you as an expert on child sex abuse. It's because you were abused.
Yes, that's part of it, and that's what put me on this path to change policy, to help write books for survivors, to create trainings for multidisciplinary professionals, for teachers, for law enforcement, for counselors. So, I'm very education-driven, because I know that education is the foundation of prevention, intervention, and response. And, we've come a long way, and we've done a much better job addressing this. We didn't even used to really talk about this. We didn't have Jenna's Law. We didn't have conversations. We didn't have nonprofits. We didn't have 24-hour hotlines where people could call in. So we have more resources now these days, but we still need to do a much better job in reaching, the adults that are responsible for children and youth, and also reaching the children and youth themselves, to get the message across to them that they need to report. And if they do report, they can find a safe adult, and that it's okay to tell. And if they have been through something, it's not their fault. And so that's what we have been trying to do with Jenna's Law on the state level and the Jenna Quinn Law on the federal level as well.
You've been quoted as saying language is a powerful tool. It's very interesting, because I say on a fairly regular basis, if you let them own the language, they end up owning the argument, and that's where we're at, right?
Yeah, that is, and I cannot believe it, but that is literally where we are at, where we're trying to change names, we're trying to change labels. And that is a very, very slippery slope, as you know. It is.
People want to find out more about Jenna Quinn. They go to jennaquinn.org, jennaquinn.org. And how many states is Jenna's Law in now?
Yeah, so if you go to the website, jennaquinn.org, there's an interactive map where you can click on your state and see what has or has not been done and what has been filed, if anything, for prevention. So I would encourage everyone to go to that map and to look. But we have about 27 states now that have passed some form of prevention education.
All right. Well, Jenna, thank you very much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sorry you had to go through what you had to go through, but I'm incredibly... Can I be proud of you for using that awful experience to try and help other kids not have to go through it?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You take care.